Hello and welcome. This is the Project Lightwaves podcast, where we talk only about square-enix projects, well, the ones that are left anyway. My name is Joe, and with me today is the almighty Chastity. How are you, Chastity?
I'm great.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is on me. You can go.
No, that was great.
Yeah.
I
think it just sets the tone for what this episode's going to be, right?
Yeah. Yes, it definitely does.
That's good. So, how are you?
I'm great. I'm actually wearing right now one of the Final Fantasy 35th anniversary shirts.
Oh, okay.
I was able to get two before they sold out. I kind of regret.
That's cool.
I was trying to wait for two other ones to see if they would go back in stock, and then I ended up losing.
I think
the ones I had in the cart.
I think the Final Fantasy 14 t-shirts sold out in minutes immediately.
Yeah,
that's the only one.
Well, I think all of them sold out in minutes, and then I think they did a restock.
Yeah.
Really quickly, and then those kind of lasted a little bit longer, but yeah, because I was trying to see the ones I was trying to get was the Final Fantasy 1 shirt, because I thought that one was cool, the logo and stuff. I figured 7. The 8 one was terrible, so unfortunately I wasn't gonna get that one.
Yeah.
And then 10, and then I actually really liked the 13 one, but that was one of the ones where I should have just went to cart and just checked out, because then I was trying to see if it would come back in stock in a small, but then the medium I had in the cart got sold out. So I just was all right, let me just get the 7 and 10 ones before those are gone too. So yeah, I actually have the 10 one on now, and I actually like it a lot more in person than I thought I would, so yeah.
Did you get the 16 one?
No, I didn't. Which I honestly, I feel the 16 one was probably the one that sold out the least. I didn't really like the design of it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel I think that shirt, and I think this is a problem with all the shirts, is I think that they probably should have changed the color with some of them, because with the 16 one, I think the 16 one would have actually looked cool if the shirt was white. And then for the actual logo, the picture of Clive and Ifrit, if that was, that picture that they released with adult Clive looking all emo.
Yeah.
And it has the logo and it's all
adult Clive stuff. Always looks like an emo. Yeah, but
true. But this is extra emo.
Yes.
And if the font's all red and black, and I feel that they should have had the art of him and Ifrit be gradient like that, where it's red and black on white.
Yeah.
And that would have been cool, and I would have bought it, but it just was black on black, and it just looked really boring. So
yeah, they just went all dark and gritty, the game is probably going to be.
yeah, and I think the Final Fantasy 9 shirt, that one was blue, and I just felt that wasn't really a good color for that shirt. But anyway, so yeah.
That's good.
But how are you?
I'm great. I'm all things considered, I'm doing great. Like the introduction alluded to, not everything is honey and rainbows, and we're going to talk about it extensively. But first, there is something far more important that I have to mention. I want to start this episode by asking you a very simple question, Chastity. Do you know what tomorrow is?
Tomorrow's Sunday?
Oh God, I knew you were going to.
I don't know. I don't know what I was supposed to say.
This is how people, this is how you know that this thing isn't rehearsed, right? Because. I knew you were going to say something like this, but come on, didn't you check your calendar? And
no.
Well, tomorrow is the first anniversary of this podcast.
Oh God! Wow,
tomorrow it will have been exactly 1 year.
1 year
since we recorded the first episode. I I mean, you probably have a lot going on
Yeah,
in
this
your
week has
head
been
right now, so
crazy.
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna blast you for this. That's okay.
Well, I think also for me, it's kind of weird that like there's like the anniversary for like our, I guess, the first recording, but I think
Hmm.
to me back in like I think it was February-ish, I kind of thought more about it then because I think that's when like I think
Yeah,
February of the last year was when.
I'm actually, I'm because it's the anniversary. I was going to talk about this because I thought it would be a
Mhm.
good idea to talk about the
Mhm.
origin story of this podcast,
Mhm.
which starts, like you said, months before the first episode went live, because
Mhm.
it required extensive preparations. In my
Mhm.
case, at least, I know it wasn't your first podcast, but for me, I didn't know what the
Well,
hell I was doing.
technically, it was, yeah, because like the podcast I was in was like it was really my brothers and his friends kind of
Yeah,
just
I know,
doing like
sure.
a thing.
So, but
But
sure, but you
yeah,
had experience, is what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, after that, we had our test run, which was
Hmm.
uh, maybe a couple of months before the.
I think it was like April. I think we
Yes,
we did
yes,
it in April. Yeah.
yes. And then eventually, episode one, First Light, was made.
Hmm.
And that would be tomorrow, day for day. The day we recorded that episode, and then it was um, it was live the next day. But the recording, the anniversary of the recording is actually
Hmm.
tomorrow. But
Wow.
before all of this, uh, since it's the origin story, it began with a single tag on our Discord server. Do you remember how it all started
Yes.
and what
Yeah.
exactly went through your head?
Well, I was like, well, I guess the origin on my side was kind of like, for me, I kind of just looked around and I know I listened to like some podcasts. Some are like very professionally done.
Hmm.
If like they have like all the equipment and like maybe a semi studio type thing. And then I listen to podcasts
And
where
a
it's like,
podcast editor and
yeah,
everything.
things like that. Yeah, and they have an official YouTube. There's people like that. And then I listen to other podcasts where like they literally just record like a Zoom session, and that's the and that's cool too. And I just thought about like, hey, like everybody has a podcast these days.
Right.
Everybody
Yeah.
has something to say, and I know how I have things to say, and I also due to the nature of my job, it was kind of like a lot of like not public speaking, but like we talk to customers a lot. Like you know how to you
Hmm.
know how to speak well, things like that. And so I felt like this would be like a cool thing just to like be a part of something where you have to like make sure you're articulating your thoughts well
Hmm.
and things like that. And I just thought it would be fun. And then I also thought, well, this isn't something I can do by myself. Like I don't know anything. Like I like literally like my podcast experience was literally just like being handed like a headphone. I put it on and I talk, and then that was like it for like. And even then, I was like maybe like a few episodes we would do that was like a gaming thing,
Hmm.
and so I didn't know like one, who is somebody who would want to do it, and then two, who would be somebody who like could balance out skills I don't have, and then even I could like learn from or something like that. And then I was thinking, well, I do know somebody who kind of like is really knowledgeable
Well,
about
not
Square
really.
Enix.
Not in these things.
Well,
Little
well,
did
I
you
mean, I
know.
said, well, I feel like Square Enix. I feel like you're really knowledgeable. Like, don't sell
Yeah.
yourself short. You're very
Yeah, I mean,
knowledgeable.
I I do like reading about the technical side or
Hmm.
the financial side of Square Enix,
Hmm.
more than other fans would. You're right.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
yeah, I remember you just receiving this ping and asking me about, just out of the blue, just to make this podcast. And I remember I didn't even ask for any detail. You asked and I was like, just yeah, let's go, let's do this.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of like how I try to. I mean, it's still a work in progress, but that is something how I try to like live my life. Where I feel like in the past, like I would be hesitant to do things, or I would, overthink it, and I
Yeah,
was just like, just do it, and
just
I'm
do
like,
it and we'll figure out the details later. Just
yeah,
say
and
you want to start it, and then Like, for example, the podcast was initially going to be about Final Fantasy only, right?
Mm-hmm. Or more focused, kind of more on like the music. I feel like
yeah, it was
we're trying to
different.
have like a. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then we thought that we discussed way more than just Final Fantasy on this server, and we liked
Mm-hmm.
way more than just this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about it. We liked even the Western side of Square Enix. Rest in peace. So yeah,
Well, they still some of it still technically exists. It's not totally dead, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, it's the games that they released are still there. They will
Mm-hmm.
always be there. I also remember, like 5 minutes later after you asked me, I what did I get myself into? I have no idea what how to do this. But then yeah, like you said, I immediately thought that everybody, literally everyone and their mother have a podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
how hard can it really be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like going from there, we made our own like server so we could like plan and communicate. And
Hmm.
I think one of the two favorite parts from that experience, I think, was one, the name, because I know where the name was like a process, and
Yeah.
this the name actually kind of came from like a joke.
Yes.
Because
From Square Enix having way too many projects.
well, I remember that. But when we were trying to like incorporate like music stuff, like we were thinking like no, I think originally we were like melodies of life, but that seemed kind of like too on the nose, like
Yeah.
cheesy, and so we are going through it, and I'm a 10-2 fan, so like there's obviously, eternity like memories of Lightwaves. So I'm like,
Yeah.
Lightwave sounds cool. Like,
Because
how can we incorporate
uh,
that?
while we were trying to find out a name, I was also trying to make an intro music and an outro music.
Mm-hmm.
So, it all
Mm-hmm.
came together pretty much at the same time.
Yeah, and I think there was like the stuff like Project Octopath and stuff like that. And
Yes.
I think I was thinking about like the logo and like fonts and stuff, and I know like that's like a very specific font that they use for like Bravely Default, like
Hmm.
Project Lightwaves, all that stuff. Not Project Lightwaves, Project Octopath. And I think you made like a joke about like Project something. And I was like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
what if we did do
Yes.
that? And so that's how the name came together. But yeah, like I said, like my second favorite part was definitely like the music, because like I feel like, I mean, I would say kudos to you, because I feel like before, like I feel like since you this podcast, like I feel
Hmm.
like you've been
Yes, that's
uploading
true.
more music to
That's true.
your
And I
YouTube
was,
channel.
yeah. I mean, you're the one who encouraged me that to make one.
Yeah.
So I just used one that I already had and just started uploading. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely when I push myself, to learn how to make music first
Hmm.
for this podcast specifically, that I started creating other stuff just for the channel I now had. And
Hmm.
yeah, definitely one of my favorite things about all this podcast that we started. It's great. 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah.
And well, it's definitely been a fun ride, and I'm grateful for like the listeners we have. And I feel like, to me it's kind of, it's like a fun thing to like talk about. Like I'll tell, like, my family, like, oh yeah, I
Mhm.
technically have a podcast, and they're like, what? And it's cool being, seeing people's like reactions and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
um I don't know. I feel like we've both grown
Yeah,
since,
I
doing
also
this.
think it kind of got better, as
Hmm.
not only quality wise, but pacing wise, and
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
there's still a lot of room for improvement in my case.
Hmm.
But we're getting there,
Hmm.
and I know it's
Yeah, and go ahead.
yeah. I was just going to say that 10 episodes, and it's been 1 year. There's like 2 months missing there, but that we had our
Yeah.
reasons. Okay.
Hmm.
That's all.
You're gonna fight the audience.
Yes.
But yeah, yeah, definitely. Like for me, like I know, like I've had to learn about equipment and stuff. You've used definitely matters, and there's been like some upgrades behind the scenes. Definitely on my end too, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably continue making like upgrades so that we sound quality and stuff like
Sure,
that,
sure,
and
sure, sure.
maybe and then in a bit, maybe, I'll feel inspired to like maybe change up the logo a bit and like do something different.
Oh,
But we'll
definitely. Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
even the
Um,
I'm when I hear the intro and the outro now, I'm not really satisfied with what I'm hearing. So yeah, definitely. After
yeah, yeah.
in hindsight, a lot can be improved. Yeah, it's true.
hmm
So
Yeah, and I guess
yeah,
my final thought I was gonna say, which you something you said earlier that reminded me of about how like you make improvements and changes. And one thing I'll say, I really do like the whole like the when I suggested letting you do like an episode to host, and I like the vibe of us like switching it.
yeah,
Um, and I think that's something that like will
yes.
continue. So yeah.
That's okay with me. I've been enjoying both sides of
hmm
the driver's seat and the passenger seat. It's the both are fine with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Chastity, happy birthday, even though you forgot. That's fine. It's still
I'm a bad
it's
co-host.
fine. It's still a special occasion, and to celebrate that, Square Enix sold their whole Western division. Yeah, how nice of them. He
Well,
said,
okay, I have a question.
yes.
So, don't they still technically own like the studios who make like Just Cause and like Life is Strange?
They actually don't own these
They
studios.
don't own
No,
them. Oh,
no.
okay.
I mean,
Do they own the IP?
I think they do. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because they continue to make Life is Strange games, even though it's not with Don't Nod anymore.
But I
So
thought that was just kind of like maybe a decision of like, cause one studio that's making that kind of like is continuing making the Life is Strange series. They had already were technically working on Life is Strange games anyway when
yeah, I think the studio Don't Nod didn't want to work on this series anymore,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Square Enix moved on. But that's just my
hmm
way of saying that they own the IP because they can do whatever they want.
Whatever they want.
They're
Yeah.
not obliged to stay with Don't Nod. So I think even Just Cause and even Outriders, I think we'll mention them later because there's a press release from Square Enix that mentions them, and we'll cover
hmm
that. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, for now, we there's a lot to talk about, so buckle up. Um,
hmm
the news is, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but at the same time, I don't think while I do think there is a lot to say about this, I also think that not everything is worth listening to. What's interesting to me is
hmm
not, or you, is not always going to be interesting to everyone else. So,
hmm
I mean, don't get me wrong. We are going to talk about this. Like, this is a pretty huge deal. But I kind of just want to make this as palatable as possible, palatable and short. I know.
I think
Yeah.
I think you made it clear that I think you dislike this decision more than me, and I think you should just jump into like why that is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to, cover all
Okay.
first,
hmm
for anyone who doesn't know, just say
Yeah, yeah.
what this is about. Even though, like, I think we'd both rather be talking about 16 right now.
hmm
And to everyone listening, we already know about the Sony State of Play. It has been announced yesterday, for us at least, for
hmm
you people of the future. This might not be the case anymore, but for us it is. But we are aware of it. we'll probably cover that in the next episode. For now, the actual news is Embracer Group has entered into an agreement to acquire the development studios Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montréal, Square-enix Montréal, and a catalog of IPs including Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Thief, Legacy of Kain, and more than 50 back catalog games from Square Enix. In total, the acquisition includes, give or take, 1,100 employees across 3 studios and 8 global locations. The total purchase price amounts to $300 million, and then blah blah blah. I know we're late to the party, but in our defense, this news literally dropped one day after our last episode. So you know how this works. It's a monthly podcast, so we had to wait, etc. So before I get into this, because like you said, I have a lot to say. Not a lot to say, but more than you. Would you care to give your thoughts first?
I mean, I think the reactions are interesting because as someone who actually I've bought like every single Tomb Raider, like at least since Square Enix has owned Crystal Dynamics and like the reboot has happened.
Yeah.
I bought all those games day one. Like I bought like an Xbox One or Rise of the Tomb Raider. So like I'm not someone who's like, oh, like I don't care. Like I'm someone who's in it. That I feel like it's in it more than like some of the people who's like reactions who are like suddenly upset, because I feel like leading up to this, whenever you would go online, you would always see like whether it was websites like Resetera or like on Twitter even, you would see whenever they would show like the Western side. Like I remember when Guardian showed, and again the first reveal of Guardians was terrible, but I do feel like there was kind of like this tone of like, oh, why is Square Enix being taken over by like Marvel? And it's like they've only released like 2 Marvel games. Like, people chill out. Like you would see that and like, oh, we don't care about this, blah blah blah. And then now, and people have made it clear that they value the Japanese side more than the Western side. Like I remember seeing like Resetera threads or like people were like, the Western side's dead weight. Like they would literally say things like that. And then now they got rid of them, and now everybody's like suddenly upset. And I just find that kind of interesting and weird. And then 2, I'm indifferent to this, and because I've seen a lot of people like, oh, people are gonna lose their jobs from this, and it's kind of like, I mean, yeah, like I feel like if it's getting bought, like there's gonna be probably like some reshuffling, and maybe unfortunately people will lose their jobs. But I kind of feel like we don't know that, but there's like a lot of assumptions that like people are gonna lose their job. But I'm like, people would have lost, like if they would have just closed these studios, more people would have lost it. Because that's what I'm tired of. Like it was either, it sounds like
true,
some of these studios are probably gonna get closed, and maybe like everybody's just making Tomb Raider or something now, versus they get sold, and at least it sounds like this new Embracer Group, from what I've heard, they seem to be very big on like remasters and ports, and it sounds like they're going to start revitalizing IPs that Square Enix never had interest in using. So to me, it's kind of like, well, Square Enix was never using these studios and like their IPs to like their maximum capacity. I've been saying that like they should sell. I've been saying they should sell the Tomb Raider IP. Like I know people are kind of like, oh, they sold it for too low, and it's like, why do you care what like a multi-billion-dollar company does? Like you're not getting this money, so like if they sold it for too low, so be it. That's Square Enix's fault. Like I'm not getting the money, so I'm not gonna like get caught up in that. But my opinion is that the 2 weakest links with with Tomb Raider as a series currently was Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics. Like I feel like Crystal Dynamics, like I think what we're gonna see, unless there's new staffs and things just magically fall into place. I feel like whenever the next Tomb Raider comes out, they're gonna be some of the same issues people have. They're gonna be kind of like you know not outstanding like AAA games. Like I just feel like nothing's gonna really change, and
Hmm.
then people are gonna have to like face the reality. Well, the issue's not Square Enix anymore. Maybe it's the people that's making them. And I hope it's. I'm wrong, but I feel like I won't be. So that's kind of just where I stand. Where I just feel like, hey, at least out of this deal, I might get to play like some remastered ports of the classic games on like my
Right.
PS5 because that
Yeah.
wasn't happening with Square Enix. Like we literally had like the anniversary of Tomb Raider was last year, and they did nothing. Like I think everything that happened was kind of like the social media manager like at Crystal Dynamics was like a huge Tomb Raider fan, and I feel like whenever there's been stuff for the anniversary, maybe Square Enix gives them like a small little budget, but I feel like it's kind of like them like for like each month they kind of dedicated each month to like one of the games in the series and like got artists to
Hmm.
do art to represent each game, and that was great. But it's also like, where are the games? Like why aren't we getting like announcement of ports or like some type of like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro type,
Yeah.
remaster, remake type thing. Like that didn't happen, and so that's why I can't really be upset about this because it's just like, what was the alternative? Just for them to like never really utilize these series to their full capacity? Like I don't know. So that's kind of where I stand on it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In your case, you're mainly a fan of the games, the franchise that
Hmm.
is Tomb Raider. So I guess there's no downside for you. So yeah, probably
Yeah.
from your point of view,
Well,
yeah.
I guess for me, even if I look at like the other games, like Deus Ex was dead under Square Enix, correct? And I think Embracer
Well,
has already come out and said like we're gonna try
they
to like
never said,
revitalize.
yeah, they never said it was that. Like even they, I think someone from IDOS even said that there's a future for the series. Just they
Mm,
were just
uh,
working on other things right now,
like
and
Tomb Raider.
like no
like
Guardians of the Galaxy. That's
Yeah, that's true. I
yeah,
mean, I just feel like I don't know. Like it kind of reminds me of like Bioware. Like they'll be like, yeah, we want to return to Jade Empire, but be on Mass Effect and like Dragon Age, and those are like the two biggest things. Like
yeah,
so I don't know. Like I feel like people wanting to return to it and like hoping to return to it is different than like it
yes.
actually
Yeah,
happening.
sure. It's all talk, like, but
And
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
that I don't think I would say that it was a dead franchise. Like, sure, it was dormant. Maybe that's not
It's,
dead. You know.
the Chrono Trigger, is that dormant or is it dead? Like I don't know. That's
Uh,
probably a whole different discussion of like
yeah,
how you view that type of stuff. So,
yeah.
but anyway, go ahead.
I so it's my turn, I guess.
Hmm.
I don't think it's a good thing. Uh, not for me. Like, I don't think it's a good thing for any of the parties involved. It's not a good thing for the studios because they're not really leaving with their heads held high. It's not a good thing for Square because they never really knew how to manage them, and that feels like a loss for them, and obviously also because of the loss of talents and IPs. Tomb Raider was, I think, the second or third biggest franchise for them. So yeah,
Hmm.
huge
But I
loss.
mean, I feel like the thing is, I guess I disagree. I mean, I haven't. If there's been like devs who come out and like said something, please say so. But I guess I just feel like one of the narratives, which I mean, I disagreed with this whole like narrative online where people are using like old quotes from like the former CEO, but there was like, or people would take the current CEO's quotes about how Guardians did and like twist it and make it seem
Hmm.
like, oh, it's like they're like he's crapping on the devs, which wasn't really what he said. But I kind of feel like right now they're kind of in
We'll
a
get to that.
position where yeah, I mean, I just feel like they're kind of in a position where like I don't know, like to me it just I don't think they're in a good place regardless, and it just seems like again, like Square Enix wasn't managing well, and it's like,
Oh,
well,
so
they haven't been
that's
managing
what you
them.
disagree with. You don't think they mismanage them like people?
Well, no, I think I don't really. I guess I just don't understand like the whole they're leaving with their head down because it's just kind of
Yeah, no,
like, I mean,
I'm not
companies
saying that.
get,
Like, I mean,
yeah.
they have their reason, and I will get to that. There's the
Hmm.
when we talk about the financials. I just don't think they ever knew what to do with them. That's the problem,
And I
and
mean,
that
I
might be
think,
because of them. It might be because the games that they are making are just not appealing to enough people. That might just be it, but yeah, like I said, they tried everything, and it never
well, I
really
think
worked. Yeah.
the thing is, I think, I guess what I disagree is like they tried everything, and I think that's what I mean when I say like I'm not sad about. If it's a loss for Square Enix, then that's their fault. I think that's where I'm not like really sad about it because it's just like, well, again, like the reboot, people use that infamous quote of like him being like, "Oh, it didn't sell as much as we wanted," like straight out of the gate, and it's like whatever, like that CEO isn't there anymore, and
Hmm.
it's like whatever they thought at the time, it did. I mean, I guess that's the topic of like I feel like people focus on like what's the unit sold when they talk about game sales, but they don't think about like when those units are sold because like from my understanding, a lot of the Tomb Raider games, like it is their most profitable. I think it was like at least on the western side, it was like easily the most profitable like IP, and I think it was like third overall after Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest.
Mm.
And I think it came out and they Crystal Dynamics came out and said that like I think the Tomb Raiders overall sales were like 80 something million, and like 30 of that 80 something was like the reboot alone, which
Mm.
I think one thing people ignore though is that is revenue. And it's like one thing I remember with like Final Fantasy VII Remake, they came out and talked about its sales.
Mm.
It specifically noted that like most of the sales are like digital, and they're really happy about that because digital means you get it. I guess besides like the cut like Sony gets and stuff from the PSN or whatever, they get all that in full versus like physical, like on Amazon,
Mm.
Amazon will have like deals to make it cheaper, blah blah blah. And I think that's like an important thing is that I think studios and like publishers, I think they care about getting as much revenue as possible. And it's like
Yeah,
once these games get older and they get cheaper,
and
yeah, those are units sold, but they're not being sold at full price.
yeah,
So I think those are things that should be
that's
factored into
true.
these
That's true. That
conversations.
and also the fact that no matter how much the game sells, the most important thing for the game is first of all to offset the cost that it took for it to be
To
made.
make it. And I
Yeah,
don't think that was happening
yeah.
with
For
like
like
Crystal
for
Dynamics.
to put this into perspective, Final
Hmm.
Fantasy 14 broke even on development cost on day one after selling quote unquote only 5 million copies, while I forgot which Tomb Raider was still considered disappointing after selling more than double that amount.
Well,
Uh,
I think well I checked. I remember when all this stuff was happening, I went back and checked Tomb Raider 2013, that's like the reboot, the first
mhm,
one. Um and when it came out, I think it sold like at least at launch, maybe like 3 million or whatever. Like
mhm,
I think like basically I think it sold less than Final Fantasy 13 at launch. I think so, if I
mhm.
remember correctly. But its lifetime sales has like far superseded it since. And I
Okay.
think people look at that and be like, "Oh, what the hell are they talking about?" And it's like I think the context, like yeah, like I think that's something that the CEO should have never said that, but I think the context
Like at the
of
time,
that is
it
being
wasn't
yeah.
satisfying, and I don't think he was lying then. Like I just think the development for these games on Western soil just cost them that much, and
And I
it
think that's why even if we thought it was a terrible idea, and it was, but I think that's why they probably did the Xbox deal,
Yeah,
where I think
that's money
Xbox
up
probably
front.
gave.
Like that's safe money.
Hmm.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about
Yeah,
it.
and unfortunately, though, it's like that was a bad decision because Tomb Raider, even though it hasn't been exclusive for a very long time to PlayStation, it is still heavily associated with PlayStation,
Yeah.
and it alienated a lot of like hardcore fans, it pissed them off, and I think that ruined some of the momentum of the reboot itself. I
Mm.
think, and so that's what I mean, where I just feel like they've made weird decisions with since they've had this
Yeah.
IP,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
I
I
think we
think
agree on that point, yes.
yeah, and I think they've never, like I said, they've never like capitalized
Yeah.
on building like even if the reboot was successful, I don't think they've successfully capitalized on actually making Tomb Raider itself as big as a brand as it could be. I don't know
Yeah.
if Embracer will do that, but it's also like, well, why not? Like in this age of remakes and ports and stuff, why would you not release the older games?
Yeah.
So people can play it or people can see. So it's just I don't know. It's just very
Yeah,
weird. And
yeah, no,
like you
I
said,
agree. No, this is basically what I was saying. Just it's
uh-huh.
it's not an ideal situation, to part ways. They're not
Hmm.
selling them because they were doing good for them. That's what I'm saying. Like, no matter how
Okay,
you
yeah.
look at it, I don't know how things will go in the future, but as of now, it's an L for everyone involved. Well, maybe not for
I think
Embracer
the L.
because they
I think
got
the
a
L is
good deal.
probably on Square Enix. Yeah, I think the L is probably on them. Yeah.
Yeah, but even for the studios that have been acquired, like this is not, they're not being sold, like, for example, they're not being bought like Insomniac because did outstanding they were outstanding with their games. They have been sold because they were not having a good output, because they were not offsetting the cost that Square Enix was paying just to manage them year to year.
But I think that's not like I don't think that's something they should feel. I think that's just like a game. I think those are two separate problems. Like I'm not an expert or anything, but I just feel like from my understanding, and I think we've talked about this in previous episodes, that like Crystal Dynamics, for whatever reason, have like a very high overhead cost,
Yeah.
and that's something that's an issue. And then I also remember I think it was Rise. It was either Rise or Shadow, where I don't know if it was like an interview with the devs or like something, but like it talked about like the game's budget. And a big part of that budget, I think, was just like advertising alone, and that was like I think a thing that happened with the
Hmm.
Avengers, where like when people look at like why did this game cost like 200 million, and it's
Because
like
it
well it
was
wasn't.
delayed. That's the
Yeah,
extended marketing campaign cost them more than they should have spent, I
yeah,
think.
but people don't look into that. They just think
Yeah.
like, oh, like, yeah. And so I think those are things that are like, I mean, and I mean that's probably this might be something I don't know you want to jump into, but I mean maybe that's just we don't like acquisitions, but I think maybe is going into a conversation of why these acquisitions happen.
I
Where you have some of these
Yeah.
publishers who
I
maybe.
mean, I don't even have to like it. Like, people don't have to like it. I'm just, I don't think the this whole uh thing happened and it was positive for both of them, is all I'm saying. I think it was
Mhm.
only positive for Embracer, because I was saying
I mean,
they really got a good deal out of it.
I just feel like if Embracer can manage Crystal Dynamics well, why would it not be? And I mean, I think that's the thing
Yeah,
of
sure.
like to
I mean,
me, it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
question mark. But it's like if they
I
can
mean, yeah, yeah,
manage
yeah.
it them well, then it's
Completely.
like why would it
I'm
not be?
I sincerely
Uh,
hope they'll thrive under them. But for now, knee jerk reaction. For me, I'm
yeah,
not feeling positive about it. It's not really that good.
yeah. I mean,
Hope for
I
the
guess for
best
me,
though.
it's just. I guess to me, there was always like whether Square Enix intended it for it to not. There was always like weird PR with them and Crystal Dynamics, where people would run stories about Crystal Dynamics is like crapping on its devs, and I'm like, I'm sure that sucked all the time. So,
Mhm.
like, I don't know, like if I was a dev there, I would probably, I think for me, if I was a developer, I would just be happy I still have a job. Like whatever politics is happening above me, I'm
Mhm.
not saying they don't care, but I think like that's probably like if you're just a developer, it's like as long as I have my job and I'm still have stuff because it's hard out here. So
Mhm.
so I don't know.
I
I mean, like
imagine
you, I
so.
wish, yeah, like I wish them the best, but I don't know. It's like a very difficult thing. Like I know when the Bethesda stuff happened with Xbox, like I was listening. I think it was like the kind of funny like podcast they do, like one of the gaming ones. And I think it was Greg Miller kind of talking about how like as a journalist, he's talked to these devs and like Todd Howard and stuff before,
Mhm.
and he's like one thing people don't really think about is like yeah, like sometimes they have issues behind the scenes we don't know about, and like they need help financially and stuff like that. And like from what he was saying was that Bethesda was always going to get bought by somebody, but from his understanding, they went to Phil and like Xbox, and they specifically, out of all the options, they wanted to be bought by them because I think they already had like a close relationship, and I think the alternatives they didn't really like, and
Uh-huh.
so I don't know. There's like I just feel like a lot of this stuff is just kind of complicated, and there's just probably like a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we don't know, and probably will never know and
Yeah.
understand. And all we can do is, to me, I just hope for the best for devs and people who so people don't lose their jobs or anything like that. And I think the worst case scenario could have been Square Enix, because Xbox and other companies have done it where they just keep the IP and they close the studio. Because I think that's something people are ignoring, that they
Yeah.
didn't have to sell them. They could have closed all these studios down and just made like a Japanese team,
Yeah.
make Tomb Raider or
Uh,
something. Because
uh,
like that's an Xbox deal with Fable. Like they closed Lionhead, and
Electronic
all those people
EA
lost their
does it all the time.
yeah. So I think that's something that's also like we don't have to like it. Whatever happens happens, but I think people don't, like at least people have jobs,
Yeah.
and I think that's something we can be grateful for. So that's
Yeah.
kind of I don't know if you have more to say, but I think that's kind of like my final thoughts on it.
For about this sale, no, that's pretty much it. But there was a response from Square Enix, so not long after this announcement. Square has also made a press release outlining
Mhm.
what they were hoping to do with all that money,
Mhm.
such as new investment in blockchain, AI, and cloud. Very promising stuff. They also wanted to maximize revenue, whatever the hell that means, and double down on its Japanese studios, which is, I think, a good and sensible thing to do. Not only that, they also released the full financial performance of IDOS and Crystal Dynamics since 2019, and it didn't really look good. And I know this is the boring part I talked about for some
Well, there's
people.
something else. I don't know if when you said Japanese studios, were you talking about how they specifically mentioned they were interested in acquisitions?
That's a different press release that I'm talking about.
Okay, okay.
I,
I wasn't
actually, it
sure.
wasn't
Okay.
even a press release. I think they talked about this during their financial quarter
Yeah.
discussions. I will get to this
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So
briefly.
I
There's
just didn't know if that's what that meant. So okay.
this. I think this press release I'm talking about came out like the same day or maybe the
Hmm.
next day after Embracer announced the acquisition.
Okay.
I won't spend too much time on it. It's not, but it's an important part yeah, because of these financial that they released, and because for years, people, including me, you talked about this earlier, thought that Square was just using them as scapegoats whenever they had a not so good financial quarter, and it turns out that they were not. They were not, and that's clear from the numbers, right? Like I said, they barely turned any profit for the past 3 years. They're just managing to just cover the cost that
Hmm.
was needed to maintain them, which is not a good thing when you own such renowned IPs and companies.
Yeah.
It's I think it's also clear from the price they've been sold for. It may sound like a lot at first, 300 million, but in today's
Yeah, I think
market,
300 million,
it's not.
that should have just been for Tomb Raider alone,
Yeah, it's not
let
that
alone
much,
all of
right?
Yeah,
Especially
yeah.
like you said, considering all the IPs that this sale includes, I think
Hmm.
it's pennies on the dollar, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think for me that was like them selling them wasn't weird to me. I think the price that was like the one thing where it just felt like, huh, like
Yeah, it
300
said a
million?
lot.
Like I
It said a lot.
yeah.
Yes, just
Yeah,
without
yeah.
saying it. Like I'm sure it's Square Enix, right? Like they're not going to undersell. They're a company that like money. They. It's just I think that's how much they are worth right now. Because of course these numbers they were disclosed during the discussions. So when discussing this deal with Embracer has the numbers in front of their eyes of how much this company has been, making Square Enix money for all these years, and it wasn't much. So that's man, that's how much you're worth, guys. That's it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing of like, people are wondering, and I didn't want to like jump into this, but like, I can't talk about it without bringing it up. But I know there was like the rumors because like Jeff Grubb saying like, oh, it looks like Square Enix trimming fat for like a sale or something, if
Yeah.
like Sony was going to buy them out.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing for me was like, people's immediate response to this was like, well, they have Uncharted, but it's like Tomb Raider is still like a big deal, and I know like um if Sony could have gotten that IP, I feel like they would have wanted it
Of
if there
course.
was gonna be like a sale with if they were gonna buy Square Enix. So I feel like that's the reason why, or
Especially
one of
that
the reasons.
Tomb Raider has been a PlayStation staple from even before Uncharted. So
Exactly, like they could have done like a whole cheesy like Tomb Raider Uncharted cinematic. Like they would have done it. Like they would have done like their own like universe and shit. So
the
that's why
Drake
I
and
don't really.
Lara multiverse. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's why I don't like fully buy that because I just like one of like if whatever was like Xbox or Sony. Like honestly, I feel like the only reason like Xbox didn't wasn't a wasn't the buyer was because of the Activision stuff. Because I think like if they tried to buy another company, it would start looking weird legally. So I think
Yeah.
they kind of have to wait for that to be sold or that deal to go through. Like I think that's the only reason why Crystal Dynamics isn't owned by Xbox right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I just feel like yeah, like this is a weird part of the deal, and then also the other reason why I don't like I know people focus so much on the NFT things, and it's kind of just like to me, I just kind of hand to hand wave it away. It's like oh, it's like an old guy like CEO. It's like yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
blockchain. He's been talking about this in
for
his
a while now.
for since 2018. It's just now that people are picking up on it because NFTs are
NFTs, just yeah.
getting a bad rap online, which is fair. Like it could be like this monumental, something very bad they could be doing, which ended Square Enix. So there's a high chance it might happen. So
I think the reason I kind of hand wave it away is just obviously because of that. But it's because I mean I feel like every time they bring it up they laugh. Like I feel like until they try to like start incorporating this into like bigger games, it's kind of just like all right, Square Enix, like whatever.
yeah,
But another thing is like like you said they mentioned like the whole getting into cloud, and it's like they've been trying to get into cloud for like years. Like that's why they had like the whole
since the old
um
CEO even they even
exactly
made a
and
separate company for that.
yeah, like, and that was like another insane thing. It's like, let's name our sub company after the evil corporation for one of our games. But anyway, and like they had like the whole Shinra company thing, and they were trying to get in the cloud. So I feel like none of this is like new, like you said, where it just feels like them kind of just repeating things.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not really. It's
and
not even interesting to talk about. Like it's nothing for
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Well, I'd
Yeah, I
rather
think
just
the
wait for it to materialize in front of me, and then
yes.
I'll get mad about it, because right now it's a whole bunch of nothing.
Yeah, and I think for me, the more interesting thing that came out is what I asked about, and what you said, I guess, was during their actual like financial like
Hmm.
meeting report or whatever, was them mentioning we want to use this money, I guess, to like
Yeah,
invest in other acquisitions, and
yeah,
I feel like that's nothing. I mean, again, nobody saw like the Xbox Bethesda and Xbox Activision stuff happening. So who EA, I think is there's been like some talk. It sounds like they want to be bought. So like who knows with any of these companies? But I kind of feel like if the Sony Square Enix thing was actually happening, I don't think they would like. It just feels weird. Like why would Square Enix be trying to talk about? Yeah, like we're gonna turn around and like invest in some other studios right now. Like wouldn't
true.
you wait for that? I don't know. So, um, and I do think whether they get bought or not, the whole thing about, like you said, them saying they want to invest more in their Japanese studios and then buy other companies, it does make me wonder that like we've been seeing this resurgence of them actually acknowledging their old IPs again,
Yeah.
whether it's like reboots or like sequels for like long old games or whatever,
Hmm.
or remasters like Chrono Cross, and it kind of makes me wonder, are they going to try to be like, all right, we don't have like all these IPs from the Western side. Can we, we have our big IPs like Final Fantasy and like Dragon Quest, but in between the releases of these games, can we kind of like harken back to like the PS1, PS2 days where we kind of have like maybe some smaller games in between all this that makes us a consistent flow of money, and they start revitalizing IPs? That's what I'm kind of curious to see if that's what comes out of this sale.
Hmm. So not really interested in their uh the remaining Western IPs that they
I
have,
mean,
like
I didn't play those games. I didn't play Just Cause.
Life is
I kind of
Strange,
stopped. I kind of like
Outriders.
I bought Life is Strange too, but that was kind of more out of pettiness because I know some of the fans were being racist, and it was revealed like the
Whoa.
protagonist would be like brown. That was like, yeah, that was like a whole thing where like people were like, why isn't it like, why are they, yeah, like that was a whole thing, like even on Era.
All
Like
right.
I remember that the announcement that for that had to be closed, and they had to make a new one because people were being racist in that. But yeah, so I really only bought that game out of
You mean
support, and then
the second one or the third one, not the
the
original
second
Life is? Yeah.
one,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
second
Yeah.
one
Yeah. I
with the
remember that.
brothers,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then I did hear that I did hear people I think some reactions about the third Life is Strange, about people were saying it was actually really good. So
Hmm.
I think maybe down the line I would get that, but like overall, like Life is Strange isn't the series that like I check for. So
Yeah.
yeah, like the westerns, like to me, like I mean, besides Tomb Raider, and then I really did like Guardians of the Galaxy, and then if like Crystal Dynamics and like Eidos, if they made like other games that I was interested in, I probably would have checked it out. But yeah, like outside of those, I just wasn't.
Hmm.
They didn't have anything else coming out, or were making anything that like I was like
Yeah.
jumping to buy really.
Yeah. I We could end this,
Mhm.
on. I kind of want to end this segment on a positive note,
Mhm.
because even after selling a large portion of its business, Square has still so many big projects announced or in the
Mhm.
works right now. Like, holy crap, 16 remake part 2, Kingdom Hearts 4, Dragon Quest 12, Forspoken. I might be forgetting a few.
Well, they have the big ones, and I guess that goes to what I was just saying. I was kind of curious to hear your answer for
Hmm.
was like to me, it looks like I could be reading too much into it, but like with them releasing or announcing games like the new Valkyrie profile game, or it's like Valkyrie Elysium or whatever. And we're seeing the remaster for like Chrono Cross, which is like out of nowhere. Like you
Hmm.
would think, Chrono Trigger is the one people talk about more. So it getting a remaster was like surprising.
Yeah.
And there's people are kind of like hoping there might be a Parasite 1 remaster or
It's
something.
been copyrighted. Yeah, I think they.
Yeah, copyrighted. And so to me, it just feels like this would be a good opportunity, and it looks like it might already have been happening before this sale even happened. It just feels like maybe they're pumping out more like double A games
Yes, yeah, we talked
and to
about this.
fill
Yeah,
out the yeah, to fill out like their portfolio, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Since
I mean, I think they've already started. Even before the sale, they were anticipating
exactly,
the
yeah.
sale and were using money they didn't have yet. So yeah, it kind of feels like they have a lot more
Hmm.
going on right now than ever. Like
Exactly.
the games I've mentioned are all high profile games, and yeah, I don't even think that a publisher like Sony ever had so much going on at the same time. For example, uh,
And that's why I don't understand why people want them to be bought by Sony, because I
they
think a
want
lot of
them.
these,
People want
well,
them.
like fanboys, since
I
Xbox
mean,
is
yeah,
buying like custom.
Sony fanboys. I hardly think Square Enix fanboys want that as well. I've actually seen the opposite reaction online.
Yeah, like I mean, it's hard. Like yeah, like I do think there's people like us that like don't want it to happen and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But
that's
but in this age that we're in, it could. So I don't know, but I think
like it.
that's like
It
one
would
thing.
be like they already have so much exclusive with Sony without being acquired like
And
this.
that and I think that's, to me, I don't get like the rumor talk about this because it's kind of like, well, I feel like for their big games, like I feel like that's enough for Sony of like, hey,
Yeah,
we pay you. And honestly, I kind of wonder if they're even paying. What if the rumors for 16 is true? Sony paid for it to be next gen only. But to me, honestly, I kind of wonder if they paid Square Enix for 7 to be exclusive, because I remember like the CEO at the time, I think, was saying like they called him up and was saying like, "Hey, we're remaking 7," and he was like super excited, and he was like it was like hard for him to keep it a secret, and I just feel like they're so embedded with them, at least in terms of like big stuff, that like
yeah.
sometimes I wonder if like they're already willing to be exclusive, and maybe Sony probably does slide them a check, but
Yeah.
it just seems like it's just something that just
I
naturally
don't
happens
I don't
anyway.
think that much would change if they acquired them. Like maybe we wouldn't see any of their Switch games. Like they're releasing a lot of Switch games, I guess. But
And I think that's a problem to me. Like to me, that would be like a big deal
that
because
would
like
be
I
a
do
big
buy those
loss,
games.
yes. That
Yeah.
and for a
So
lot of people too, I think. But they
yeah.
already released so little on Xbox that that on that
I mean,
front.
I think to me they have kind of like a. It's been clear they have like a healthy rotation where they get money from Sony
And then they
once the
go on
time
Game Pass.
exclusivity. Yeah, then they get money from Xbox, and now on PC they get money from
Yeah,
Epic. So to me, it's kind of like, why would they get bought out when they can just get like time? They have like a good system here going, at
yeah.
least especially on the Japanese
It
side.
would.
So
They're not like they can't. They're not Insomniac. Like they're not a one game or one or two games per generation publisher.
hmm.
They're more than that. Like they have more
And
opportunities.
they
Yeah,
have manga. Like they're not just games either, which I think people forget about.
yeah. Animes.
They
Yep.
have like yeah, they have all that stuff, and then also like one thing I noticed, I kept seeing online where people are like Final Fantasy 14 save Square Enix because of like the whole financial report, but it seems like people
Uh,
were like,
14.
yeah, that was annoying. Yeah, like that was annoying because I don't like the
Yeah,
whole like one person savior stuff they people do with like
yeah.
Yoshida. Like I
That's
find it
not.
kind of weird, but
Yeah.
uh, but but ignoring that, like that's not even accurate because like in the if you whatever like slide people are posting, like it clearly shows like on each sector, like their HD games, and then they're like MMO, like online games, and then I guess like mobile stuff. Like they had each grown,
Hmm.
but like the biggest of all three was like the mobile stuff, and it had grown. So it's like I feel like again like all their sections were like making good money and like
Yeah.
seem to be improving. but I feel like people kind of like sleep on the fact that like these gacha games are like pulling in money,
Yeah.
and
And
they also have like,
they
oh,
don't
go ahead.
cost anything to be made as well. So
Exactly. And then they also have like exclusive games, like Final Fantasy 15 has like these weird exclusive games in like China and stuff like that. Like we know nothing
I think
about.
that these
So
were pretty much front loaded. Nah, I don't think they just paid for the license and then they don't see any money from it.
yeah, probably. I don't know, but at least for like the games like
It's the same for
Brave.
14, by the way. The Korea and Chinese version of 14, they also just sold the license. I don't think they're getting any money from them, if I remember correctly.
So but the money they have, because I know like Korea, like the Korean version, they get like exclusive items that ends up in
Yeah,
our store.
yeah.
Do they at least get money from their store?
I think so. Yes, this one. Yeah,
Okay. Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah. So either way, I just feel like I think Square Enix, despite all this, I think it'll be fine. Like
yeah.
honestly, like it does suck. I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's not all doom and gloom. Is all I'm saying.
yeah
Like
yeah.
we talked about this. I think a few episodes ago, right? Like how they can, if they can keep this up, have this that many high profile games. Like we don't really care if they also release small budget stuff. And I think
Yeah.
this is why we don't get. We also don't get too upset every time 16 doesn't show up, because
Exactly.
it's
'Cause
not the only thing we have to look forward to. And
yeah, because I mean,
yeah,
I think the only concerns I think that they have in the future is just making sure, like one, Forspoken is like a new IP, and I think it's still kind of like up in the air.
hmm
To me, Forspoken is a coin flip. Like either it's going to be like a surprise hit,
yeah,
like do really well, like for a new IP,
yeah,
or it's kind of yeah, like it's going to be like a high 70s game or something, and it'll kind of be like it'll sell what it sell. Like I think that still remains to be seen. I'm hoping it's the
yeah.
former instead of
Let's
the
just say
latter.
that it's a good thing that delayed it
Yeah,
that much. Yeah.
and there's that, and then there's some of these like AA games they had like Valkyrie Elysium or whatever,
Yeah.
like things like how are those things gonna sell? And so I just hope I hope they sell well because I think like the negative thing that can happen from this is if some of this stuff that doesn't sell,
Well, the
it
good
might be
thing
like,
about
hey,
small, the games like these, like this, with small budget, is if they don't sell too well, it's not as big as a problem as when Avengers didn't sell well. That's
well, yeah, for sure, but I just feel like Square Enix to me is like they seem to have, and I mean, maybe it's changed in a couple of years, but they seem to have this thing of like they'll make these kind of like double A games, and then I don't know what the metric is for it selling well, but I guess when they decide like it hasn't, then that's it. Because I know with World of Final Fantasy, I think that's kind of what happened. Where I think when like they released that new version that came on like Switch and
mm,
Xbox Maxima or whatever, I think the guy who was like the director of it was
please
just
buy
like,
it. Please,
yeah,
if you want a
basically, please
sequel,
buy.
please buy it.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten one, so I feel like that
That's
kind of
Treasure of
answers the question.
Paradise, though.
I mean, I think, yeah, unfortunately. And I think Chocobo GP seems to be reusing its assets because I know I think it was like announced
hmm
um, that like I think like one of the new stages coming to the game is like Balaam Garden, and to me it looks like a very downgraded version. Like it
Oh,
looks like they took the assets of Balaam Garden that was in World of Final Fantasy, and it's been downgraded to look like I guess to fit like whatever engine or whatever Chocobo GP is on and stuff. So I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if like this rumored Final Fantasy IX remake. I don't know if it will be like like if it'll look like
it
World of
should
Final
be.
Fantasy. I don't know, but um, I just hope they do, I just hope they don't aren't quick with the chopping block on stuff and they just
True, true, true. But
give stuff a chance. I guess.
yeah, it's true. But even with all the question mark,
Hmm.
and sure, a couple of the games I've mentioned are still early in development. but just compare this
The
era
Dark
to
Ages.
every
Just the dark.
every year before
Yeah.
before 15 released.
The Dark Ages is what I call it.
We didn't know each other, but I'm pretty sure all Square Enix fans were miserable back then.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever said this, but that's kind of like I literally had like the era. I guess it would be like the 360 PS3 era where we got nothing but 13 games.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't.
This podcast would never have existed back then.
No.
What would we even talk about? Like the 13 sequels and Nomura saying that Versus was coming along nicely. That's all we had to work with.
There was literally like a point where I think Lightning Returns might have already come out by then, but I think 15 was still kind of like, limbo and stuff. And I was like, I don't know what's going on with this series. Yeah. And I didn't play other games. I literally started getting into other series playing other stuff just because I was like, I don't like if this series takes a turn where the games aren't good or it just takes forever for stuff to come out, I want to have other series to look forward to.
Do you sometimes think about how different your life would be without Final Fantasy or Square Enix in it?
It would be very different. Yeah, it actually would be very different. I don't even mean that as a joke. The series actually has changed my life.
I think about this all the time.
Yeah.
I'd probably be playing Call of Duty right now. That's how bad.
I feel like I still would have probably ended up in RPG, because I played I think Jade Empire was my first RPG actually.
Oh.
I played that before I played Final Fantasy. So I feel like I always liked, and technically my brother. I think the real question is if my brother hadn't played RPGs.
Maybe we wouldn't have any interest in narrative games at all.
Yeah, because I would watch him play 8, and then he bought Jade Empire, which I played. So I feel like it's like a trickle down effect. If he hadn't played certain things, I probably would have changed a lot.
For example, I don't think I'd have the same interest in music, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because literally, playing Kingdom Hearts is kind of how. Obviously there was anime, that I would watch sometimes. With you hear J-pop, but I feel like playing Kingdom Hearts and really diving into what's the proper word? Is it discography? Basically, it's an official word you call somebody's portfolio of music. Utada's music.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of Kingdom Hearts fans seem to really just oh, I love Simple and Clean, and they only listen to the song she's done for Kingdom Hearts. Where I actually really started listening to her music across albums and stuff like that, and really liked her songs just in general. And then I just got into other Japanese artists actually Angela Aki, who did the song Kiss Me Goodbye, the theme song for Final Fantasy XII. I actually listened to a lot of her music, and I actually feel like a lot of her original music is better than the theme song they gave her for 12. She actually
man. I don't think I want to live in a world where Eyes on Me doesn't exist, for example.
Yeah. So yeah, it'd be very different. So
right. So I don't know if you have anything more to say before I stop talking about this damn acquisition.
I think it's an interesting topic, and I think we kind of dived into both sides.
We tried to make it as interesting as possible, even if it wasn't. Personally, I'm going to be sad because Guardians of the Galaxy, and because
I'm sad
now
about that.
Not even because it's not with Square Enix anymore. I don't really care about that, but just because having a sequel made by Eidos now is a huge question mark.
That is something that I was sad about. Was that it's up to Disney, I guess, and Disney seems to be more open to working with companies.
I hope so. I hope to get this even more budget than what Square Enix gave them.
Yeah, so because I think that's the thing that because I think one thing we've focused on with the Avengers and with Guardians, we always got like Square Enix perspective, and I feel like Disney doesn't seem to really comment on like the only time I've ever really remembered Disney actively getting involved or saying something about a game that like they lend out their characters and IPs to.
Yeah.
Because I guess with Kingdom Hearts 3, like they had the interviews
I
where
think
they were working with Pixar. Oh, go
I think
ahead.
I remember them putting EA on blast for.
But that's what I was gonna. That's what I
Oh,
was
okay,
leading
okay.
to. But then I remembered that technically that I think Kingdom Hearts 3 was kind of like the first time you really saw like Disney animators like being in conversations with like Kingdom Hearts stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I just set that as a side. But yeah, that's what I was getting to. That
Oh,
the only time I really remember when it's been negative at least was like the EA stuff and like all the loot boxes with like the Battlefront or whatever that game
yeah,
was. And I feel like it's been very noticeable
yeah.
that since then because before Star Wars was like super wrapped up into like EA. Now we're getting like a Star Wars game from I think is it Ubisoft, if I
Mm-hmm.
remember correctly. And
Maybe.
then I feel like now like they're working with Sony to do like Marvel IPs and stuff like that. So I think if like they never said anything negative about Avengers and Guardians,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of like I think that
They
probably
should have
uh,
maybe said something about Avengers. Yeah.
maybe, but I mean, I guess for me, it's at least they didn't get at least Square Enix didn't get a call from the CEO like EA did. So to me, that's what I mean. It's like that. At least it never got that bad.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just curious of what the future will be if they were like, hey, we don't want to work with Embracer. We're gonna give Guardians because I mean at this point the fact that Insomniac is doing Wolverine
Mm-hmm.
shows that like Disney is pleased that they're letting them do more stuff. So I just hope maybe Disney is willing to give them like a second chance. Be like,
Yeah.
hey,
I
I don't
mean,
know. Well, it's
you could feel that it was a good fit, right? Like Guardians of the
mm-hmm,
Galaxy and IDOS, it worked. So that
mm-hmm,
that's what I'm saying. Like it would be kind of sad if they didn't get a
yeah,
chance to make a sequel, especially since I'm pretty sure they had a blast developing this game, so that they'd be all
yeah.
over working on a sequel. But
And
yeah,
just as an aside, if you're listening to this and you somehow haven't played Guardians of the Galaxy, this is your reminder to go out and buy it and play it
on
because
Game
it is a
Pass
great game.
today.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, so it's sad, but silver lining here. If this will allow Square Enix to repurpose all the money they're going to save from not having to maintain these studios into Final Fantasy games, for example, then I'm not gonna say it will have been worth it because I wanted Crystal Dynamics and IDOS to succeed, But if there's nothing Square could have done about it, then I guess I can only hope for the best and wish them the best too with their new
Mhm.
owner. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned it earlier. There was a financial report that came out for Square Enix showing they did pretty well for the last quarter, all things considered. I don't think it's worth going over that, but maybe there are some things we can discuss about the fact that they want to establish or even buy new studios. Uh, do you have any thought about that? Any
Um,
preference?
no, because I mean, to me, it sounds like if they buy new studios, it sounds like it'll be Japanese studios,
Sure,
right? Based on,
sure.
and so for me, I mean, I don't know even Western studios like that. I don't know like Western studios that are like not owned by stuff and Japanese studios that aren't owned by,
Platinum?
you know, I don't think that's happening.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm
Oh,
asking
what?
if you would like, to the Square
Well,
Enix to
I
own
mean,
such. No?
I
Yes?
mean,
Maybe?
no, because I mean, unless because I think the thing that like with platinum, I mean, I think this is kind of like a pro and a con. Like, I guess a strength and a weakness is better worded. Is that I think they've kind of been known as like, they've done all these different games.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if they get bought out by Square Enix, I feel like they maybe just become like a near
Yeah. Yeah.
factory machine.
They don't own the Bayonetta IP, right? It's Nintendo.
Well, it, I thought I thought Sega still technically owned it.
Sega.
'Cause that's how like
How is
Bayonetta
that working?
because like if I remember correctly, is that Sega didn't want to make a sequel, and so I think Platinum went around to all the big.
Okay.
They went around to like Xbox,
Let's
Sony, and
let's
Nintendo.
just buy Sega then.
I mean, maybe,
Yeah. People
but
always talking
basically,
about who's going to buy Square Enix. Let's talk about the reverse.
well, I mean,
Who's
those
Square
are
Enix going to
conversations.
buy? Okay, Square Enix
Well,
wants to buy. They have money now. They want to buy stuff.
but yeah, basically, if I remember correctly, was that Xbox and Sony weren't interested, but I
Yeah.
guess Nintendo was willing to like fund a Bayonetta 2 sequel.
Mm.
So that's why like because there's been a re-release of like Bayonetta 1. It's like the 10th anniversary with like I think it was like some other game with it, and that came out on Xbox and like
Yeah.
some PlayStation a couple years ago. So like that wouldn't have been possible if like Nintendo like completely owns the IP. So
Mm.
I'm pretty sure Sega still technically owns it, but Nintendo funds the development of these games because they're willing to,
Yeah.
basically.
What if we bought Capcom?
Man, maybe I don't know,
I'm joking.
but
I'm not even interested in
I know
that.
you're joking. I know you're
I
joking, but
I
I
don't
mean
even want that.
to answer the question seriously, I think if they buy a company or studios, excuse me, it would be kind of like because a lot of these like AA games that they're making, they're
Yeah.
being outsourced if I remember correctly. But I think it would be situations like that where like some of these companies that they're working with, or I
Yeah.
keep saying companies, I mean studios.
It's
Some
the
of these
same.
studios that they're
That's
working
fine.
with, I could see that maybe they just buy them if they're willing to,
Yeah.
instead of them being, you know, outsourced, and then maybe some of those
Yeah.
because I feel like I think one issue I think I've never talked about this. I think maybe we've talked about this just off the podcast, but I think one issue in terms of the mainline series that they're going to run into is that I can't remember all the business divisions all the way through, but BD1 is
Yeah.
like where Katas and like Nomura are, correct?
CBU one. They're
Yeah, I forget they changed the name.
that's fine.
I still say
That's
BD.
uh I think yeah. They're the
Yeah, I
Final
just
Fantasy 7.
they're one,
Yes.
and then I think creative business division 3 is like 14 and
Yes.
16, correct?
Correct.
So, and then we have is Luminous Productions just their own thing? Are they under like a creative division?
I think Luminous Production are their own thing now.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
They used to be business. I forget because I haven't worked, with this thread I had on Reset Era with all these. I think they used to be business division too, and they're now Luminous. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think business. Okay, yeah. So first one, they're locked in with like I think Kingdom Hearts and stuff is under that too. So yeah, like I
The
think they're
first one.
locked in to remake Kingdom Hearts 4. They're not touching Final Fantasy 17.
No.
And they're definitely that's not going to them. And then we have um the team of 14, and then we have
Hmm.
16.
Yeah.
And unless somehow like another team from 14 like splinters off and they become like the new team that works on 17, and then the team that worked on 16 goes
Yeah.
back to 14. I
Hmm.
don't know how that's gonna work. And
I
then I feel
think
like with
I think in these early stages, if they want to work on 17, like when they started pre-production, early production on 16, they wouldn't need a big team. Like you just need
they wouldn't,
no,
but
they
my
just need a
point,
few leads, which were the leads they took away from Heavensward at the time and started
well,
working on.
my point was
Yeah.
more, do they want to have like, I mean, I guess it would be fair because recently we've kind of gotten more like the Nomura side of the company of Katas and Ojima and all of them. There was a point where like they were making back-to-back Final Fantasy games.
Mhm.
Um, so it would be fair if like two teams from 14 made 16 and 17.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah,
didn't. I wasn't.
totally.
I was more speaking. I don't know if Square Enix would do that. Like I don't know what the plan is. I don't
I
even
mean,
know if it's even.
development resources are shuffled like left and right, depending on what's being prioritized at the moment. And I think right now it's 16, but once it's out, like they, I think the same assets could be taken to another what do they call it? CB, not business division.
Creative business
Creative
unit.
business units, yeah, and even the same people that right now are working on 16 could be working on remake part 2 in a few months. That's how things work, I think.
I mean, have they shuffled people around across like creative business units though?
Like I think that you have the leads and the important people in each creative
Well, I
business
meant
unit.
like once games start in development,
Yeah,
like to me, I kind of thought like they try to keep these teams kind of like,
the leads.
who knows?
I'm guessing like
My point was just instantly proven wrong once I remembered that some of the people from like 15, like Luminous Productions, worked on 16. So not 16, remake. Like, because I
yeah,
remember someone showed um, like some people with the music and stuff,
yeah, yeah.
and
That
some
it
other,
happens
yeah. So
all the
things
time.
cross over. Yeah, I guess I just was thinking more just of like I'm thinking more of like creatives. Like I feel like like creatives don't seem to cross over as much, but I
Yes,
don't know.
sure. The
So
leads maybe tend to stay. They can shuffle
yeah,
them around too, but
but
they
yeah.
mainly they stick to their division or their unit now,
Mhm.
as they
Or
call it.
I feel like they shuffle around games in their division, but they don't seem to shuffle around divisions, I guess. But the whole reason I'm bringing this up because I'm just thinking of like I feel like with Luminous Production, I feel like whether Luminous Production gets on 16
Mm.
to me, 'cause I've seen people say like, oh, like if for spoken, like they could be the ones on 17, and I'm like, well, vibe I'm getting for spoken is one, they want to turn that into a series if
Yeah,
it's successful, and I feel like if it's not successful, why would they turn around and put that same team on 17? Like
yeah.
I know, like
I
maybe that's unfair, but I just feel like they wouldn't do that from like a business perspective. So,
Yeah.
so, so again, I don't know. Maybe if Forspoken is successful, maybe
I
they
think
don't want to turn it in.
I think we can maybe, the same way people discovered who the leads working on 16 were. Maybe during the next credits in Final Fantasy 14, maybe if a few people are missing, maybe we
Mhm.
can then start with the theories and
Yeah, maybe. And
make
again,
that interesting.
it's taking a long time. I guess what I'm trying to lead to is that I just feel like do they should there be like if they're gonna start expanding, maybe should they expand to have like another team that's kind of like in the pipeline of like this Final Fantasy cycle? Because
Hmm.
I think one thing that like I think an issue that I think maybe I could see with this series is just that like everybody kind of like has their own opinion on what Final Fantasy is and what Final Fantasy should be. And I feel
Right.
like because of we kind of have two teams who have very distinct styles of like I feel like with CBU
Mm-hmm.
one they
And
seem to
three.
clearly do like the more realistic or modern fantasy stories, or with CBU three you get more of like that medieval kind of like
Mm-hmm.
European fantasy stuff. And obviously there's like some exceptions to the rule, where we got like Final Fantasy X, which is like intentionally made to be a low tech Final Fantasy game to show that you can have that and it doesn't have to be medieval. Um, but I guess I just feel like I don't want the series just to kind of just go back from like the same two aesthetics
Mm-hmm.
constantly. And
No.
I just wonder if like if since they don't have the Western divisions anymore, and if they can like create like this another dedicated team that could make another mainline Final Fantasy,
Mm.
like would it be a good idea to have that so that maybe there's more diversity in the pipeline for the franchise? So I don't know. That's just kind of like a thought, and so I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Like, and I was thinking, the same too. Like, it's not really interesting to me to theorize who they're going to buy. I think it's more interesting to see what they're going to do with what they already have, how they're,
Yeah.
going to establish, like they're saying, they want to establish new studios themselves, and it could go wrong. They don't have a
Hmm.
perfect history with that type of things.
Hmm.
Like uh, Tokyo RPG Factory comes to mind. Like it wasn't a resounding success, or the studio they made for that game that was canceled, Project Prelude or something. The studio I
Hmm.
think was called Studio Historia,
Hmm.
and it was then shut down. But I'm thinking in a way, Luminous was their try at having something that's Western, but without the the downside of having a Western studio. Like they got all the benefits with Luminous from working with Western talents, like what.
And even then, I think again it remains to be seen. But I think that was a mistake. This is my personal opinion, but I
For short
think
spoken, you mean?
yeah, like I don't think the writing.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. I mean,
Yeah, like
I
we'll
think
see, but I don't think the writing
I
like really
I
justifies what we
yeah,
see.
yeah, you're right. It's not a guaranteed
Yeah,
success at all. I'm
yeah.
just saying, from again, I'm thinking from a money wise, I guess, from a
Oh well, not even.
business
Yeah, I get
perspective.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying, but I just feel like I think Square Enix should just double down on why people like their games. And I obviously I get experimenting. Like I think I get why they like let's work with like some Western writers and a
yeah,
Western like composer, but it's like I don't play Square Enix games to hear Western composers. Like I want to hear like none of the music from Forspoken. There's been
yeah,
like
yeah.
some
True, true,
tracks where I'm
true.
like,
I'm not.
that's cool,
The
but yeah.
quality could be
Well, it's
vast.
not
Really,
quality.
I know what
It's
you're saying.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like Square Enix games like remake, like does the Final Fantasy VII remake have really like 4 star, like 5 star quality writing? No, but like so it's not about quality. It's more just like, are you appealing to why people buy your games? And I think that they should just whatever they do going forward, whatever they buy. I just think that the decisions that they make to be
sure,
based around does this
sure.
appeal
I
to the people who buy our games?
I think they'll always continue to do that, especially with
Mm-hmm.
their main franchises like Kingdom
Yeah,
Hearts or Final Fantasy. But I think that they'll always, and it's not a new thing for Square Enix or
yeah.
SquareSoft.
Mm-hmm.
They'll always want to appeal to the West,
Yeah, yeah.
which
But
is
I think they already do though. I guess that's what I mean. It's like we're
a
too.
different demographic, I
Yeah,
guess, than the one
but
they all.
but I think remake. with them, I think remake is a game that like I think they've started to push through. Like I just think
Yeah.
they just need to double down on like I think the issue with
I mean,
Square
I
Enix.
agree. I agree. I'm just telling you what I
Yeah,
think they're trying to do, because
I
with
know. Yeah.
Luminous, like they got, as I was saying, like they don't
Hmm.
have the downside of having, to pay for Western locations or Western salaries, which is, I think,
Hmm.
what I'm getting at. It's like their replacement to the Western studios that just sold, because um, if you think about it, if you take this into account, that they have this alternative, and they sold uh, the part, where this huge money sink that was their Western studios. It's suddenly it's not only these 300 million that Square gained from this
I
operation.
mean, I think I get what you're saying, but I also kind of feel like how much of that is also like Tabata's influence though? Because I feel like to me, like when you look at like changes about Final Fantasy 15, where it feels like some of those changes were kind of made to appeal. Like I think Regis is like the obvious where he's like kind of looks like the generic kind of
Hmm.
like Western king type thing. And from my understanding is that Forspoken is kind of like a 15 situation from my understanding of like um yeah, they basically are working on a game that's someone else's vision.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I just kind of wonder like how much of that is like, you know, a vision of somebody
It's,
who's
I
not
mean, from
there
what we've
or what.
seen, it's very westernized. It's really something that it's not really something that it usually, as their main business units or CBUs would usually do.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
yeah. And so I just wonder, and again, this probably just goes back to like things we just don't know and we'll never know. So I don't know. Like for Spoken, it's just a very interesting game,
Yeah,
and it'll be interesting to talk about once it's out.
yeah,
But, all right, that's all I have to say about that, though.
yeah. Like it could go either way. Like we'll see for Spoken, especially after the delay, what it looks like. But again, like it's something that I think is going on with that's something they want to do, like having a Western a type of studio without all the downside of actually having a studio in the US or in
Hmm.
somewhere else. Like this is I think this is what they're trying to do. It may be the future studios they want to establish will be in the same vein. Maybe not, like this in the same way that Luminous is, to work with Western devs, but try to diversify from what they're usually doing.
I think.
Yeah,
Sorry, this
it's
is the last thing
fine.
I'll say. This
It's
is what I
fine.
guess I get what you're saying. I guess I just disagree just fundamentally, just because I just don't think like to me for Spoken, it just feels like it doesn't feel different to me than like anything else they're doing. It just happens to have like Western like white people involved. Like to
Yeah.
me, that's like the only like if I'm being like brutally honest. And so I think like to me, it feels like a Square Enix game that doesn't really feel like radically different than anything else they've done outside of like the traversal stuff. But because they went with like
I mean, yeah,
Western,
it's still
yeah.
the people that worked on Final Fantasy 15
Well,
that are
I
working
don't
on it.
mean
That's
that. I guess I don't mean that. I guess I just mean that like in terms of like certain things about the game. Like honestly, I feel like the things that they got the Western people for is what's holding this game back. Like if I'm being honest, like I just don't think like this decision will like ultimately pan out for
maybe,
them.
yeah.
So I think that's like where I just don't. I guess I just don't see the vision because I just feel like again like I just don't see. Maybe it's the people they got. I don't know, but I just feel like it's not meshing well.
Hmm.
But maybe it'll come together once the game is out. And I'll shut up about this. I
No,
promise.
it's fine. You can talk about. I mean, I'm not even saying it's going to be good. I'm just theorizing about what Square Enix
Yeah,
is trying
yeah,
to accomplish here, regardless of what the final product will be. I
yeah,
have no idea.
yeah, yeah. All
The
right.
Sony acquisition rumors. I think we've talked about
Yeah, I think
this
we
a
talked
bit
about it.
earlier. I just have one more point to discuss
Hmm.
because I know you usually uh, you're usually knowledgeable about Xbox stuff, but do you think
Hmm.
after Xbox announced that Final Fantasy 14 was coming to their platform and then suddenly radio silence, do you think it might have anything to do with the fact that there are now discussions between Square Enix and Sony for an
I mean, wasn't
acquisition?
that like years ago?
When they announced 14,
Like I thought like that's been something people have been waiting on for like years.
I mean, they talked about it for years, yes, but I think maybe it was last year or year before that
It's like the first time
Xbox
I've heard of that.
Xbox had a showcase where 14 was mentioned. During
I
the
don't ever remember that.
oh,
I feel
okay.
like I've watched Xbox showcases and I must have missed that. Yeah, because like I don't remember that at all. Like
Yeah, back
I remember
in the before
people
times when
before
showcases happened,
COVID.
yeah, with real people and
Oh, okay.
touching
That's
each
probably why.
other on screen. Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
I feel like unless to me, I feel like unless like someone on Square Enix side was like on stage, and I feel like unless Square Enix set up themselves, then I think it should have been taken with a grain of salt. And
okay.
so yeah, yeah. Like
But I feel
I
like
think
they kept talking about it, like, right, and then suddenly it's been like a year of radio silence, and even Yoshida dodging the question every time it's been asked. So I think that's the only thing that I think about every time someone mentions a Sony acquisition. Like,
I mean, to me, it just feels like
yeah.
to me, I feel like Sony wants Final Fantasy, and that's the thing of like what I mentioned earlier of like why the acquisition doesn't make sense because I don't think Sony cares about like all of um all of Square Enix's IPs. Like they want Final Fantasy associated with Sony
Hmm.
like it was before. Like
Yeah.
I and I think that's the key of like no, like you're not gonna get Xbox 14 on Xbox because they don't want it to be a so like yeah, like I think it's all wrapped up together. It's like I don't think maybe there isn't like some official exclusive thing going on
Hmm.
with Final Fantasy 14 itself. But I think Final Fantasy as a brand, when like games come out on console, it's like no. At least at least between Xbox and Sony, it's like no. It needs to be Sony either permanently or at least first. And so I think that's kind of like the answer to the question.
Yeah.
I don't think it really has anything to do with them
Okay.
being bought out. I
Okay.
think it's just like
I
it's
hope so.
yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
I mean I hope so too, but yeah, I just think I mean to me I guess to me, like as someone who bought an Xbox first, like I feel like a lot of people in these discussions, they've already had a PlayStation 4
Hmm.
and never had an Xbox, so they don't understand this. Like I think like the only reason Kingdom Hearts 3 and Kingdom Heart Final Fantasy 15, excuse me, were on Xbox was just because they announced it earlier. Like I think if they like I think once the Xbox One came out and they Square Enix saw the sales, if they hadn't announced them being on the consoles, I think they would have never been on Xbox One. Like I
Hmm.
think so like yeah, like a lot of the games were already like exclusive like way before.
Yeah.
It was just probably like side games either people didn't care about or people already had a PlayStation, so it wasn't an issue for them. Versus
Mhm.
me, I had an Xbox One before I had a PlayStation 4. So
Yeah.
being able to play those games were like very difficult. And to me, it was very clear of like, oh, they're not gonna like unless it's like way after the fact, like Game Pass or like releasing it like years after, they're not supporting Xbox. So
Hmm.
I don't know. So to me, it just that just feels like what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still hoping it comes to Xbox. I think it would be a good thing for 14, to expand the player base. That's
I
so.
mean,
Still hope
probably, but
it's coming.
remake hasn't. So I think if remake never comes to Xbox, and I think we have our answers.
Yeah,
So,
probably
yeah,
right. Yes.
yeah.
And I wanted to talk about 16. It was in the talking points. But something happened yesterday, like we said, and we might be talking about 16 pretty soon. So maybe I'll just leave it at that. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen 16, but hopefully that journey will be at an end in a couple of days next week. Now, speaking of journeys, what have you been playing lately?
Well, I think before I answer the question, I would probably say like you can probably treat this like the Undertale section, where it's
No,
like
no, 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 no one is allowed to leave. We're talking about Final
okay.
Fantasy 14 here. Everyone stays.
Well, I was just figuring like, hey, like this is just kind of like a bonus thing. But to answer the question, I've been playing Final Fantasy 14, which I mean I've been playing Final Fantasy 14 kind of like for a while. Like I
Hmm.
mean, I bought like a Realm Reborn when it came out. Like I was a freshman, I was a
Yeah.
freshman in college actually when it came out. So time flies. And so, but I've on and off I've had like either had like a laptop or like PCs that for
Yeah.
various reasons I couldn't play on permanently. And so now on the PS5 I've been trying to play more consistently, and I think after the last patch where they added the trust or
Yes.
A
Uh-huh.
Realm Reborn, where you could like play all the main story trials and dungeons with like AI
Yep.
party members. Actually, I have some friends. If you play 14, you know that like Crystal Data Center is kind of like the data center known for where all the role players are. And it definitely is like it's very funny like logging into there and you see like all these FC name tags for like dash RP at the end of them. But and I have some friends who are like into the RPing and stuff. And I actually already had my very first 14 character was already on Crystal for like another reason, and then I actually had an alt on there. So I've been playing. The alt I've been playing with is actually an alt of my character on Ultros. Um,
Yeah.
and I think I was on that character. I hadn't played it in a while, but I think I was like right where you get to like Satasha. So, like I was able to just jump in and like use the trust. And I think I got through A Realm Reborn using the trust within like a couple of days. I don't think it took me a full week, but like almost maybe
Oh.
just due to work life. Yeah. Um, and I think it was interesting playing it because I feel like when you're playing it with like the AI party members,
It's a
you can
different
kind of like
experience.
yeah, like you can actually enjoy the dungeon and you
Yeah.
can actually like talk, like take it in. Like with Satasha, because everybody kind of just runs through it because it's like a baby dungeon or whatever. Like I actually never knew that like there's like a room in it. Well, actually, there was one funny thing. Like when you go running, like to a kind of like not the very final boss, but like there's like a sub boss or whatever. You like run into his room. When you like run in, like the ladies start screaming, and you can like read their text. And I've
And you
never
know
had
what's
the
going on
opportunity.
and how dark this
Yeah,
place is. Yeah.
exactly. And that's what I'm leading to. Like I remember, like the ladies are like, oh, they were like screaming, and like I never got to read that because again, you're just
Gee, I
rushing
wonder
through.
why they're screaming.
Well, when they were first screaming, they're like screaming at you because they're like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god!" Like there's this person like trying to like kill people, and then after that, you can optionally choose to run into this other area, and it's just like a bunch of kidnapped women, and they're like, "Oh
Hmm.
my god, you freed us!" And I'm like, "What the hell?" Like I had never been able to notice that because like again, you just rush through dungeons, but yeah, like it's that was really cool. And then one cool thing is that they kind of revamped. towards like the very end, they like revamp some of
True.
like the
Yeah.
fights, trials or whatever. Um, and I don't know, like I feel like a Realm Reborn is probably the expansion pack I've played the most, just because of like
You probably
restarting.
played it more than me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've played A Realm Reborn like 3 times. And so I feel like this time I tried to like make sure I didn't skip any cutscenes. I read it, I read everything,
Hmm.
and I really took it all in. And I do think there's still some low points. Like I think
Sure.
Costa, like the whole Titan stuff, like just sucks.
Sure.
Like
The
I,
banquet.
like
Yeah.
yeah, and I think they cut some stuff out to like try to make it not suck, but it's just like this sucks. And that's like a definite low point. But I don't know, like I think like when I play, I try to kind of like pretend like I'm actually my character, that like I'm experiencing these things like how you're supposed to, I guess technically in an RPG. And I feel like that makes me
You were
be
feeling
invested
it.
more. Yeah, like I'm more invested that way. Like
Okay.
one cool thing, I always kind of just I always just felt like Baker was like this loser. Like I never paid attention to him. And then
Oh.
this time I like actually felt like sad because like after you fight Ifrit, he actually like tells you, this is like another thing, like if you're just like kind of skipping dialogue and kind of like checked out,
Hmm.
is like he like tells you like, hey, like all those people that were with you, like when you fought Ifrit, they got tempered and
Yeah.
we gotta kill them all. And I'm like, bro, what? and he's like, he's kind of like struggling emotionally, which leads to him being possessed. So it's like, oh, okay, like
Yeah.
I kind of wish they maybe write that up more, but it is what it is. But and I do think like the game kind of I think gets better towards like the end. Like I really enjoyed the Ultima fight with just like 4 people, because I feel like when I did it
Yeah.
with like 8, I had no idea what was
Yeah, it's
going
not only
on.
that. This one got revamped good. Like
It's really good.
yeah.
Because can you like remind me, in the original version with the 8 people, do like all
Right.
the do all the summons come out in that fight?
Yes, they do, but
Okay.
I think first of all, it was the Ultima fight was part of the dungeon. It wasn't a fight on its own. It was just the
Yeah,
end
yeah.
of the prior dungeon you did, and
Mhm.
then did the whole dungeon. Just because it's a level 50 dungeon, it got outgeared so bad that everyone just face rolls it, and even
Mhm.
Ultima, it got face rolled so hard that you barely
Yeah.
get to see every summon that comes out. That's
'Cause
why.
I guess that's what happened to me, because I,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like you're getting all the summons, and like I guess in context, if anybody's like listening and you haven't played Final Fantasy 14, spoilers.
It's fine. It's
But yeah, I was being sarcastic, but
literally a 10-year-old game. Literally.
yeah, yeah. Don't remind me of my age. But but basically, Ultimate Weapons, like this ancient weapon, and like throughout the game, it actually like literally like fucking eats like the primals, which are like the summons, and like takes their powers, and where you're fighting like the bad guy, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, he's controlling it. He like summoned, like he basically used ultimate weapons to like summon each of like the primals you fought, and it's really cool because you get to like see each one. And then I think in this one, I believe this might be a part of like the revamp changes, is that every time he summons like one of them, like I think Heidelin like protects
Yes.
you,
Yes. It's new.
and
It's
yeah,
new. Yes.
yeah, like I thought that was so cool. And I feel like with all these changes, I think that's like probably like one of my favorite changes. And I know she gets expanded upon greatly in like other
Hmm.
expansions, like I know with spoilers and stuff, but I feel like towards the end and like these new changes really makes you feel more connected to her, because I feel
Yes.
like in the past it's like this is just this like giant crystal just talking to me and
Yeah.
like really vaguely, and I feel like you kind of get the more of like you are her warrior of light, and like she's protecting you and like
Mm-hmm.
looking out for you. And I thought that was really cool. And so I feel like they really, I feel like basically they made this feel like a true like Final Fantasy like boss fight and like ending of like okay, especially the next one, which I fucking loved, was like when you fight hopefully I don't butcher his name. Is it La
La
Habrea?
Habrea, yes.
Yeah, I love this fight because I thought I had died, which I technically
That's
because
that's a troll, yeah.
yeah, and and so like with this fight, it's like you do like the solo fight, and it's like yeah, like he just straight up killed you, and I'm like, because at first I thought like oh maybe I like fucked up the mechanics and died, and I'm like oh no like I died as a part of like the cinematic or whatever. And it's like really cool. Like honestly, it felt like Kingdom Heartsy a little bit. How he like kills you, like the scene it plays,
Mm-hmm.
and he just like pieces out, and then you get the pulsing, and it's like Heidelin like bringing you to life, and I'm like, bro, and it was like so cool. So I feel like it's kind of like a Dragon Ball Z moment, where you like
Yeah.
come back to life, and you're like super fucking powered, and like this is awesome. So like I really love that. I do think like I had like a friend who they wanted to experience the new fight, but they had to like with New Game Plus. I had never did that before, so I didn't know it was broken up into like chapters where you have to like
Mm-hmm.
replay
Mm-hmm.
like huge chunks just to reach another part. And I do kind of feel like they should either fix that or like maybe they should have like a section in the game where you can experience like if you want to experience like solo trials in
Yeah.
the story, you
Yeah.
can just play it versus having to like redo large chunks of the story. But
Uh,
yeah, I thought it was great. Yeah.
so the you couldn't queue for this together?
Well, we were doing it. I think she did it. She was a little ahead of me when she was like doing because I think she was just trying to like rush through things because I mean she's like level 90 and is like a mentor and stuff. So she was just rushing through it on the New Game Plus just to get to the La Habrea fight. And she was like doing dungeons unsynced and stuff where like I was doing it as part
Right.
of the story. Like I was reading everything. Like I was doing the dungeon sync with the trust. So like we were in different stages, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did so like currently where I am now, I I'm in the patch content again. I kind of taken a I'm at the part where you kind of I think you're supposed to fight Rama, but I haven't fought him yet because I've
Mm-hmm.
been working on my gathering classes because I want them at level 50 going into Heaven's Ward.
Okay.
Um, so like
So
last
let
night,
me
oh go
ask you
ahead.
this:
Hmm.
you're going to go ahead, knowing that the patch content isn't hasn't been revamped like the
Hmm.
2.0 content. You're going to keep playing, or are you planning on waiting for, let's
I'm gonna
say,
keep playing.
okay,
Yeah, because I'm not
because the
waiting. Like
patch
I,
it's
oh,
gonna
go
take a
ahead.
while. That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to
like
say.
like basically like I would basically have to wait until like the end of the year, right? Because like the
Yeah,
Stormborn, yeah,
6.2 will revamp the patch content, and then I think Heaven's Word will be revamped in 6.3. So yeah, that might take like 6 months
do you
at least.
know? Do you know if like for Heaven's Ward and stuff, will there be changes like how the La Habrea fight was different,
I
or
think
are they
so.
kind of like
I think so.
okay?
They even I think they're even alluding to having guest characters go in with you in dungeons and stuff. So that
Yeah,
might.
that's what I figured. Like that's like I know like for Heaven's Ward specifically, there was one that people were like it'd be very emotional if a certain character
Yeah,
was like a guest party
maybe.
member.
Yeah, maybe the ending of Heaven's Word doesn't really need the same treatment as Realm Reborn, because
Yeah, because
yeah,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying that they just, what they did with the revamping of the ending of ARR is they basically modernized it to fit more with what they're doing right now with their uh, bosses and trials. So
That's
ARR still needs a little work maybe, but not as much as ARR.
That's the vibe I got, and that's like what I saw people online saying that they were grateful they actually really changed a La
Hmm.
Habrea fight because it's like he never felt. I mean, obviously, like I haven't met the other is it Asians yet,
Hmm.
and but people were saying that like because of the new ones, they always made him seem kind of less intimidating because of like all the stuff they could
Yeah,
do. So it was kind of good that like they had like a proper fight where like
true.
he just fucking kills you, and it really feels like oh like you really only won this fight because of like the power of like Heidelin, which was cool. But yeah, like I'm gonna go for it. I mean, like my the character I have on Crystal, like all the friends I have on there, like they're very like, yeah, like just tell us what you need and like we'll jump on and like do it. Like
Yeah,
because I
okay, good.
actually finally got to experience Crystal Tower. Um
Oh, yeah, cool.
yeah, and then which I kind of felt and again, I mean
I
I
think
do have they
this needs a revamp as well.
it does. It
Yes.
does, yeah. Like especially if they're going to make this like this is required and this is now a character who
Yeah.
is important to the story. I feel like to me, like we did the first one synced because you have to, because there's like a part in it you can't do without having like all the teams.
Hmm.
And I remember there was like a toxic gamer moment where like one of my friends in the FC, her like boyfriend I think plays with her sometimes,
Yeah.
and I think he needed to run Crystal Tower too, so he joined with us, and he was playing as a tank, and he was watching a cutscene, and I think some of the other groups started without him. And then someone, I think one of the other tanks was like, "Oh, Group C, you need to like pull your shit or something like that."
What?
Like
Because
yeah, like you said,
he was watching the cutscene. That's why.
yeah, and they like started without him, and that's like exactly what he said. Thankfully, like people
Y-
on our in the
Usually,
FC and stuff clap back, and I think some of
yeah,
the other
that's what
people in
usually
groups.
do. It's basic etiquette on
Hmm.
to let people watch the cutscenes, and usually players will fight for this for the right of players who haven't watched the cutscene to be able to watch it, and that's
Hmm.
if someone
Yeah,
yeah, they were right to put him on blast. I think yeah,
yeah,
that's what everybody
and
does.
yeah, and so like that was like a like toxic game moment, and I feel like it's also kind of like hard to like especially, I mean, that was my first time doing like an alliance raid. Like I had watched someone do it, like I think the near one, and that one's like very chaotic. So it just feels like it's just a very chaotic experience, and you don't really know what's going on. Like I know there was a time we like died, and I'm like, I don't know how we died, but I guess we did. And we did the last two unsync, but even doing it like unsync, it's like everything's kind of just fast. You're
Yeah,
not really in the fight because everybody's
yeah,
like level 90. So I definitely think that like they need to revamp that somehow. Because yeah, it does feel kind of like I like the last fight, Cloud of Darkness, and like you get to her or it, excuse me, and you get like the cutscene.
hmm,
The people of FC, they already started fighting her. So, like, and I mean, we were doing it unsynced, so it's like me fighting, it wouldn't have done
yes,
anything because, like,
yes, yeah.
but it's like, dang, like, it would have been nice to like experience fighting it. So I just think like,
The problem is that this alliance raid is also part of a roulette that people do daily to get experience. So,
mhm.
as much as you'll meet nice people who will let you watch the cutscene, you'll always have the occasional assholes that just want to be done with their
Yeah,
roulette and just move on. That's it.
hmm
That's a
yeah,
problem of roulettes.
yeah. So that I think they need to like seriously revamp that, and But besides that, I mean, it was cool. I did feel like it was kind of anticlimactic a bit, but but other than that, like those are like one of those
You
things
mean
that like it takes me. Oh,
you
go
mean
ahead.
the instance or the story?
The story a little bit, because I just felt
How
like
he went
knowing
into
that.
the tower to sleep?
Yeah, like to me, it just felt like everything just felt like really sudden and fast. Or it's like this is like a huge decision you're
You
making
just
like
wanted
over.
him to stay with you. You just.
Well, no, well, to me, you have to remember, I'm going back as like I'm role playing, so I'm like,
Yeah,
so I'm thinking like, what would my character feel? And I'm thinking like, this just
true.
feels
Okay.
really weird and sudden. Yeah, I mean, to me, I felt the same, but I also just felt like, because like when it happens, everybody's like, no, you can't do this, Graha. Like,
And then, okay, go
you
ahead.
can't. This is insanity. Exactly. Yeah. Like then like my
You've
character's
convinced me.
like this,
Okay, I
like
believe you.
yeah, it's like what? And so I think that's like I'm like I felt very like disconnected from that, but
Yeah,
obviously I
true,
know
true.
he comes back, and I know what I
Does
know
he
some
though?
things about.
We're not sure about that.
Well, I think maybe that's an off podcast, but like I do have like I feel like the fandom kind of like woobifies him, and I think the game kind of I think the game. How do I word this? Shadowbringers spoilers, which I feel like anybody listening to this point is probably playing Shadowbringers spoilers. But from what I
Hopefully.
understand, Raha in that is like hundreds of years old, and he's not the same person anymore, which makes sense. And so he wouldn't act the same as he would during Crystal Tower because
Mm-hmm.
again, it's literally been hundreds of years for
He's
him.
more
And
mature, yes.
yeah, and then I think from what I understand is when they go back to like it's okay. So where we're like the main world we're from, is that the first or the source?
I'm not gonna tell you that. You've already spoiled yourself enough. I'm not gonna
Whatever.
say
I know.
shit. Okay?
Anyway,
I'm
I
not
know
talking.
what are those. What are those places that we're from? We go back, and he goes back to his body or whatever, right? And
Yeah,
then I know there's like this discourse about how like people feel like he's not as cool. He's not the
that's not true. That's a
um
lie.
yeah, which I feel like that's a lot. Yeah, and but I do feel like from what I've seen of just like the fandom and like fan art and like how people react to him, I do feel like people like woobify him and like forget like this is like a grown ass man who's like 300 years old mentally. Like he's not a baby. But anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, like that's it'll be very interesting once we get to I feel like Shadowbringers, once I get to Shadowbringers, that's just gonna have to be an episode on its own because I feel like I'm gonna have to
Oh
like
yeah.
have I'm gonna have a lot to say once I get to
Yeah, we'll
Shadowbringers and
we'll
like
do
play
an
it.
episode for Heaven's Word, for Stormblood, and for
Oh yeah,
each of
yeah,
them.
that'd be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, yeah, because I feel like with A
You don't
Realm
have to ask
Reborn,
me twice, that's
yeah, because I feel like with A Realm Reborn, there's not like a lot to say
no. Ah,
because I
that's
think it's
fine.
just yeah.
You'll have more, maybe. I mean, you've already played the Realm Reborn, but the
Yeah.
patch content has more.
Well, I played the plat because
I
I basically
yeah, yeah,
have played Heaven's Ward. I just
yes,
never got to like the ending
yeah,
of it.
yeah. I
And
mean,
I
after
don't
you
remember.
replayed, are you going to replay it on this character now, on Crystal, and not go back to Ultras?
I'm gonna go back to Otros, but I think for right now, I'm going to try to just like
In a in
play
a few weeks, it won't
everything.
matter because there will be data center travel soon.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
So
because I mean, it's the same character. Like she looks the same, but
yeah, so
yeah, that's
we'll
true.
be able to help you out with any character you want to play. So
Oh, that's a good point. But yeah, I mean, I think for now I'll probably just like dedicate time to because that's another thing. I got my Fisher is like level 42 or something like that, and this is like the first time I've ever like seriously leveled Fisher.
uh,
So I'm like,
I can give you now. I'm not sure you'd want that, but I leveled my Fisher on Ultras, which is an alt, in like
mhm.
a day, just by doing left quests. So if you
I
really want
probably
to,
should. I probably should use them more. I've only used them a couple times. That's a
yeah,
good
at
point.
this and ocean fishing, it's like
Yeah, ocean fishing is
you'll be
great.
19 like without thinking about it. It's pretty
Yeah.
fast.
Okay. Yeah, then let me like I should like I usually follow like a guide for like botanists and like mining, but I
It's
feel
not the
like with
same. Like
fishing,
its fishing is way faster than the other two.
oh, I feel like I've probably been doing it the wrong way then, because I don't I think
There's
sometimes I
no wrong
forget
way. Like
about.
it's
That's
perfectly fine
true.
if you want to take your time. It's you don't have to
Yeah,
become level 18, 19 in a day.
that's
I
true, but still though.
I did it because I there were talks with our free company that we would go ocean fishing all together, and we never did it. So I did this for nothing.
Well, now that I'm a fisher, once I'm on my Ultros character again, I'll probably level her to a fisher too. So I'll let you know. We can do
Yes.
ocean fishing together.
Yeah,
I
let's
know
do
the
so.
thing about ocean fishing, I think my mistake when I did it, which I mean, I still leveled up greatly, but I think the thing I wasn't doing is I wasn't releasing useless fish. And I think that's my problem. Because
Okay.
I didn't understand it fully.
Yeah.
And so the next time I do it, I need to like release fishes that don't have anything to do with like the points or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like, so I'm just catching the fish that I actually need. So,
Okay.
all right. But yeah, that's, been Heaven's, not Heaven's Word, A Realm Reborn. So that, I am interested though to get to like, I do remember that is one thing I will say about the patch content about Realm Reborn is I do remember the moment where like shit starts to get real,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so I'm excited to like get to that point because that is something I distinctly remember, and I feel like right now I'm still at the point where like the seeds of that
Uh-huh.
is being planted, or like what's his face is being too cocky. You're kind of seeing like basically the fall of like Alphanon, or however you pronounce his name. You're seeing the
Yeah.
groundwork.
Half an hour.
Um, yeah, you're seeing the groundwork of like his humbling. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking
Deserved.
forward to that.
Yeah.
And I actually had canon that is actually kind of like a humbling for my character too, because I think I had canon that she gets like cocky after the events at the end of A Realm Reborn.
Yeah,
So it'll be
just
kind of like a
by
humbling.
cocky by association with the other, with Alfino.
Yeah, yeah. So like, it'll be like they both realize like, oh, we aren't shit, aren't we?
Nope.
So yeah, all right,
It was
yeah.
needed,
So
honestly. Like his character
yeah,
would have stayed like pretty lame without that whole.
yeah. I don't I get what they were doing with this character for Aurelian Born, but he's kind of like a bit too much
Too.
sometimes.
Sad to
But yeah.
say.
Yeah, he's a little douchey, but
Okay.
but it's okay. He's like 18, or he's like 16,
16.
17. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
16. Okay, yeah. Yeah, yeah, like he's a teenager, so that makes sense. But yeah,
It's
but all
better.
right,
It's
we
better
can
for later. For the whole dynamic he will have with his sister, and then the rest of the cast. It's better.
yeah, and I'm excited to like meet her because I've never gotten to the point where
Yeah.
like I mean obviously she shows like Aurora Reborn, but like she clearly goes through some things. So
Yeah.
that's also like I'm really I'm really excited just for Stormblood. Like I know people have mixed feelings about it, but I know some
I
people
think
that
you'll like
I
it. Yeah, I think you'd
yeah
probably even like it more than Heaven's Word. It gets a bad rap. It
I think
has great
I'm
characters.
expecting to.
Yeah.
I'm expecting to because I like I don't know how to pronounce her name correctly. Is it like last name is Miss Walker? Is it like Yuguri or
Yugiri,
something?
yes.
Yuguri, okay. Yeah, I didn't want to butcher her name. Like I like her, and so I just feel like to me I don't really care. I just don't. I just don't. I'm hoping that I'll come out of Heaven's War. I think I'll care more, but I just think that like probably at the end of this, if I had to like when I have to like um rank
Expansions.
all the expansions, I
Yeah.
think Heaven's Word will probably be last because I just don't think the aesthetic and like what it's talking about really vibes with me. Whereas like Stormblood, I'm already
Yeah.
liking the vibes of like Stormblood like a lot more.
That's
So I'm excited
valid.
to like
That's
reach
valid.
it.
Like
Hmm.
people who tend to prefer Heaven's Word, they do so just because the story is more grounded, and sometimes it's a bit the pacing is a bit off. But I always argue that even Heaven's Word has this problem. So
Hmm. Yeah, because I think like Heavensward, like I don't know, man. Like I just remember kind of like we were just traveling with like the elf lady and then the dragon races dude, and they didn't like each other. Like that's all I remember. And then the one dude dies, and yeah, but like, and I think I literally don't remember what happens after the one dude dies, even though I
Who
got
knows?
pretty far
Maybe
after that.
with the whole new perspective, maybe you'll see it differently, because Heavensward
I
does
will. I
have
will.
its moment, because that you've simplified it. It's basically what you said, but the whole uh, the whole dynamic with them, it was pretty fun. To have them both around during your journey,
Mhm.
and have also that fire camp scene, and to see how they both grow. That even if you don't like the characters, you can see them grow, and not stay the same stubborn characters that they were when you met them. That's all about
Yeah,
growth.
and I definitely think I will be more attached because I even when I was replaying A Realm Reborn, and you meet. I have no idea. The one that's his name, the elf that starts with an H. His name starts with an H.
Porshafan.
Yeah, him. Because I had no idea how to pronounce his name. But him, and like you
French
meet him
names,
in A
man.
Realm
Yes.
Reborn, and there's like one quest where I think you're like dealing with like heretics or something,
Yeah.
and you're
Usually.
like fighting one, and like he literally rides in like this knight of shining armor. I'm like, oh no, like I probably won't like. I know like a lot of people like ship or whatever the warrior of light with him. I don't think I'll do all that, but like I can see why like he's so beloved because he
Yeah.
like just runs in like a knight and like like saves you and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I can see why like people like him so much, and I'm sure like it'll increase more because I do remember like he's around a lot in Heaven's Ward. So I'm definitely looking. I'm really looking forward to like Heaven's Ward. Like honestly, if I can, like we have a Monday's a holiday for us, so I honestly think I might try to like really get through the patch content of The Realm Reborn this weekend and try to just see how far I can get. So
Yeah. Well. Okay. I think it's time to end it. I will personally look forward to your future journey in 14. It
Mhm.
wasn't, the most uplifting of episodes, but I'm sure the next one though will be more enjoyable for everyone, and I'm
Yeah,
sure
I think
us.
everybody still is in his mourning period.
Yeah,
Needs to mourn a little bit more.
yeah.
It'll be better next episode.
I'm. I hope so, man. Like it has to. Like it's time. Like it's been a pleasure as always.
As always, yes.
Thank you all for joining. Stay chill, and until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
I'm not gonna
Whatever.
say
I know.
shit. Okay,
Anyway,
I'm
I
not
know what.
talking.